Hello, and welcome to Adventures in Regression Therapy. I'm Steve Burgess, hypnotherapist and regression specialist, and together with members of my team, we'll be introducing you to the fascinating world of past life regression. In each episode, we'll be discussing the importance of regression therapy, the range of physical, emotional, and spiritual issues it can help with, and sharing some of our clients' stories from the many thousands of regression sessions we've facilitated over the years. We hope you enjoy the ride with us as we explore the power of past life regression. Hello, Burgess here, and welcoming you to another Adventures in Regression Therapy with my colleagues and team members Monique in Canada and Michael Hearn over in Australia. We thought today we'd discuss something which is really quite quirky. It's not sort of mainstream in regression, but it's an issue that happens fairly regularly for us as regression therapists. And this is a subject of spirit release work. So we do find fairly often that for some of our clients, not all, that they have what we call spirit attachments. And these are spirits of people who, or things that have died, but who have not fully passed over and moved into spirit. And for whatever reason, they've attached themselves to our client in some way, very often in the aura, or even sometimes connected to a physical part of the body. And we can go through a spirit release process to actually send the spirits home. I will say this is not exorcism, and also I will say that we are not specializing in this type of work, and therefore if you're watching this and thinking, well, my sister or husband or whatever has probably got a very nasty spirit, you really do need to see somebody who specializes in spirit release work. But what we're talking about here are sending home spirits who were just lost, confused, and for whatever reason, they've attached themselves to our clients, often because our client's energy is attractive to them. And what that means, it means that if a person, for example, is depressed or very anxious or very sad, their energy field is low and they are more open to these spirits connecting with them. Whereas if your energies are high and you're in a more sort of positive mode most or if not all of the time, you tend not to get many spirits attached to us. So it's something that comes through, and it's something that we work with fairly regularly with great success, and can be very, very beneficial for our clients. So chaps, who'd like to start on this? Michael?
I've got one. The example I just thought of in your introduction would be a good second one to come in on because it's complicated. So just to throw you out, Mon, at the start of the podcast. I'm so sorry. Is that okay? Because this one...
I'll start with a simple one. To lead it in for you.
Just because there's another level. And let's start with level one, because I know you've got a couple of good examples.
Level one, then we'll progress to level two. We'll progress to the advanced craziness. No, and I think it's good to say too that it's not only this life too, right? That there seems to be people can bring attachments in from past lives, that we'll be working on clearing past lives, and there'll be attachments for whatever reason. Like Steve said, it could be ones that are lost, or maybe it had to do with whatever themes we're exploring in those past lives. But it seems like a lot of our work, that time doesn't really matter at all. There is no such thing as time. It's just all a big blur. But often, it's hard to tell. This isn't one of our main questions we've talked about in other episodes of the podcast. We start with current life, past lives, and ancestors' lives. And then we kind of have a whole slew of other options. If those aren't what the subconscious wants to work on, we have some kind of more, oddities, I suppose. And this is one of them. So sometimes right off the bat, the subconscious doesn't want to work on any of the three. And so we have to kind of dip into that bag other times it can be several sessions until we really kind of know that spirit attachments are a thing, or sometimes it's just this intuitive feeling to kind of dig a little deeper into it. But I've certainly had clients recently where it seems to be a first session, first meeting, and I'm always hesitant because I think, well, what are they going to think? You know, they came for hypnotherapy, and right off the bat, we're releasing spirit attachments,
which feels religious,
right?
yeah. And it's like
Yes.
I'm not being religious here, but this
Like,
has
who
come
is
up.
this
Yeah,
person?
yeah,
Yes, yes. But it's often that by getting rid of those attachments, it allows us to work in a deeper way, that sometimes the attachments can mess with things. They can mess with the IMR response, that it seems like they kind of throw a spanner in the works for the client. And often it will be an immediate release as well, too. I had a client in her first session. She was suffering from just a whole slew of ailments for her whole life. And first session, her IMR was just a very, usually it's, I don't know, it's smooth, I find. Usually it's a smooth, there can be like a flick of the finger, it can be a hand wave, but it almost has, I find, an emotion attached to it when you're working with the subconscious. And this was agitated. Her hand was just, it was shaking, it was kind of going all over the place. It felt like it was angry. If you could read body language, it felt like whatever this was angry. And when we dipped into it more, it ended up being her mother, who had passed, who she never had a great relationship with, that attached herself to my client. And we went through this process of, I mean, there's different, like Steve said, there's different ways of doing this. We do just a very basic level of letting the attachment know that they're not supposed to be here, sending them off, getting the client has to get involved and put the intention out there for them to leave. So just very basically standing in your power and your sovereignty and telling them that you do not want them here. But for this client, after a first session, it was just dramatic. All of a sudden, all these physical symptoms she was experiencing and pain levels in her body just diminish. It was like, poof, we just took this big scoop out, and then we were able to work in regression. And after that, the IMR was smoother. Everything just kind of flowed a little bit better once we dealt with that. Plus, it gave her understanding about her mother, that she never had this great relationship with her mother. And I think there was a lot of resentment both ways. So it gave her the opportunity. Not all of them are known to the client. Sometimes you can just walk somewhere and get ones that have nothing personal towards you. Like Steve mentioned, they're just attracted to your energy for whatever reason. But for my client, it allowed her to get things off her chest by conversing with her mother too, in order to release her. It's almost like it gave her mother permission to move on now that she dealt with whatever unfinished business that they had.
Yeah, and sometimes the symptoms, we could say, that the spirit attachments are causing our clients. Sometimes we don't even know that they're there. The client has no idea they have spirit attachments, and there are other times where the spirit attachments are causing considerable difficulties, particularly with depression and anxiety. Those appear to be the two main sort of effects that spirit attachments have upon us. And of course, if we don't know they're there, people can go to doctors for years and not get any proper treatment because it isn't a physical thing, it's a sort of a spiritual thing.
Yeah, it's not even an emotional thing. Like it's a spiritual thing that's attached to the emotional part that may be partly physical. So yeah, it's entropy, isn't it? It's like an endless feedback loop. So sometimes the spirit release bit can be a really important way of breaking that feedback loop, that entropy, that people find themselves stuck in that same kind of cycle over and over.
Mm. Yeah. And preventing them from picking up more unknowingly. It's you're giving your client back their power, that they have this ability to do this. Of course, we mentioned there are ones that are a bit trickier that require specialists in the field, but in general, it's about taking back your power and knowing that you have the right to say that they're not allowed. And for the clients, that can be very powerful in their day-to-day life.
Sometimes the spirits are not picked up generally. It may be that the client is living in a place which has spirits already in it. Some people talk about portals where spirits come through. So it's actually a very big subject, this. And I think it's something which is just to some degree quite suppressed because it is a bit strange and a bit cookie. But for us, when I first got into this job, over 30 years ago, I actually didn't think this stuff was real. I knew about ghosts, of course, but I thought anybody who, with spirit attachments, it wasn't real. But talking to people who I knew, who I really respected, they said this is very real. And I've had a couple of colleagues, one who was a hypnotherapist, who specialized in sending home spirits, he did clearance work, house clearance work. And he said, this is very real stuff. People are just not prepared to look at it. But the benefits can be life-changing, as you said, Monique. Sometimes we do a release work and the client gets better from all sorts of issues. And we can pick them up all over the place, of course. Anybody who's been in hospital, there's a possibility because you can pick up spirits there because there's lots of dead people there and things like that. But often they're more attracted to us, and we can just be moving past a place where they're hanging around and they just latch onto us.
Yeah, sometimes it can be quite simple where it's more of a conversation to the spirit, because sometimes the spirit doesn't necessarily know how to get out of their funk or why they're still hanging around. So when we do it, we're quite gentle to start with. Just because someone has a spirit attachment doesn't mean, hey, bad spirit, get out of here, because the spirit may need to start with a more gentle response of maybe love and support and assistance to be able to go home. And Steve, you've always talked about the going home or going to the light. Did you want to talk about that real quick? Because I love that.
I was told a long time ago not to send the spirits to the light because there's a possibility they'll go to the nearest light worker and hook into them. So that was part of my teaching years ago. So I always tell them to go home, to go to a place which is full of love, a place of healing. And there's no such place as hell. In my experience, that doesn't exist. But that maybe the spirit is worried or feels guilty about something they've done whilst they've been alive, and they're worried that they're going to be judged. So sometimes we explain that to the spirit. But I think, as you say, Michael, we do that from a perspective of love. And we send them to the place of love, because when we go back into spirit, then we are in a place of love and healing.
And I think to start there gently, so one of my clients had an experience where it was a past life, World War One, and she'd actually suicided in that life. And the spirit stayed there with the body and with where her horse had died, and that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. So she was very confused because she's thinking, how is that a past life? But I'm still here, but I'm experiencing a past life where the spirit's still there. How are we still both existing? Which could come down to, split souls. It could come down to we actually don't understand everything about what it's like, here and know all of the answers. But part of her soul or whatever that is was still there in that spirit. So her being able to release that spirit, because she felt that life and she really felt a empathy for this man, because she experienced the life as that man and that sadness, and said, it's okay, you can go home. And there's people there to be able to go home. And she actually did the spirit release work for her past life spirit that was still there. Which was a really beautiful thing. It was a very really loving and caring thing to be able to say, you can go home. And I helped her with some words to say, but, it was a really special thing for her. And part of her had changed after that as well. She didn't realize she was carrying a certain energy, but how lovely for her to be able to release that soul from that past life. But it can get to a more complicated level as well. And this is kind of that stage 2 example that I had a client who has suffered a lot in her current life, a lot of success, actually quite famous for where she's eminent in her field, but has suffered a lot through a lot of different traumas, both physical, emotional. And a lot of that had come back to a lot of past lives as well, and some themes in past lives, and even other past lives that have followed her along. And due to that was happening, there was another either entity or group of entities that was feeding off this suffering energy. And she had had an experience where she was actually working, this is why there's so many levels to it, with some ETs as well, in the trance work as well. And so when she'd found this entity that was kind of, she described it as sucking on the energy, that her energy was delicious. And it revealed itself as being many. You know, it felt kind of demony to me, that kind of language of we are many, and trying to be very scary as well, which often is the case of when you shine a torch on something. It wants to be scary because, oh no, you found me. And so I was having some big reactions. She was having some very fearful and big reactions to it. And I was able to obviously step in with some authority as well, because this was, you know, not a nice energy that was around, and it was really affecting her. So I was actually fairly stern with it, and letting it know that it's, you know, breaking the boundaries of what it's allowed to do here. This is against her will. It's not okay. And it was quite annoyed at my presence as the therapist being there, and really challenging it. But she felt like it was still hanging around. It was upset and it was scared, but it was hanging around. So I had to ask for help. And that's something that we do from time to time, particularly if people are in touch with spirit guides or whatever it is. And this was with a lot of those ET connections that she had, that was doing some, I don't know, you want to call it light work or whatever it was with her. And I asked if there's any of those that could actually help, and hoping as well, oh my gosh, you know, I hope they can. And they were able to bundle it up in like a ball and push it away. And then she had the sense, she said, they're telling me they're dealing with it now, it's okay. And she just gave this, like just this release of, oh my gosh. And I was kind of annoyed because I can't claim that I did it, because some other ETs did it for me. So, you know, whatever. It would have been nice that I was the hero that came in, but oh well. But she felt so much better that this entity thing that was quite scary had been rolled away. And she was quite scared by it as well. She said, oh, there's claws out now and it's getting bigger. And I just said, well, of course it is, because it's scared, because I've called it out and it's going to go. And it instantly shrunk after that, because we called it out. It was still hanging around. So sometimes we have to get help from elsewhere as well, and it's something beyond our experience. Because again, we're therapists, we're not priests. You know, we're not, you know, whatever. Well, even priests get help from, you know, God or whatever. So a lot of the process, it's not just us. It's, you know, we can call on other forces around to help out. I think you've done that a few times too, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, as Monique and myself have been talking about just recently, you know, this extraterrestrial connection is very real, very significant. Many clients do appear to have benevolent extraterrestrials who are helping, or who are there waiting to help as well. Whether that would be classed as spirit guides by some people, I don't know, but whether spirit guides are different, or whether do they exist at all, we don't know.
Or angels, or are we talking about the same thing with a different language? Who knows? Like it's hard to know if we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Monique and Michael. I think hopefully that was interesting for everybody. We always find working with spirit attachments very interesting. It's an unusual part of our job, but as I said, it occasionally comes through. It's more often than we like to think of, I think. But it doesn't mean to say that everybody has got spirit attachments. Not at all. It doesn't mean to say that these things are scary or malevolent or evil. Not at all. Yeah, there are some nasty ones, but the vast majority are lost and confused and just want just want sending home.
It's almost quite boring sometimes, we have this cinematic view and it's so just basic. And the client's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm good. There's no thriving or yelling or screaming or anything. It's just, okay, done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very gentle process, isn't it? In the vast majority, 99.9% of cases, it's a gentle process. And we're just guiding them. And it's a privilege to do that. There's real beauty in this work at times. But the important thing is then it helps the client to get better, and it often helps our regression sessions to flow more freely as well. Okay, well, hopefully you've enjoyed listening to us. Thanks for tuning in, and thank you, Michael and Monique, and we'll see you another time for more adventures in regression therapy. Thanks for watching. I've been Steve Burgess.
Thanks for listening to Adventures in Regression Therapy. For more information about Steve Burgess and his team, check out steveburgesshypnosis.com or connect on Facebook or Instagram. Steve's books, The Power of Past Life Regression and Famous Past Lives, are available through his website and Amazon, and are available as audiobooks through Audible. Free hypnotherapy recordings are available on YouTube on Hypno for All. That's Hypno, the number 4, all.